Okay, the video is officially rolling, so there we go. I am going to very much miss Miriam's talk because I was looking forward to hearing what she had to say about all that. So those of y'all that don't know me, most everybody here does. I'm Isaac Rehberg, the Archdeacon for Liturgy here in the diocese, and the Rector of All Saints San Antonio here in San Antonio. And I've been asked to talk about worship and church planting today. So if Bishop Scott wanted us to focus on 6.5 days, I'm focusing on that half of the seventh day. It's a very appropriate follow-up also to what Archdeacon Elias said on prayer, because worship and prayer always do go together for us as Anglicans. He and I were talking about that before his presentation, that what really could have been one big presentation. So often when we think about worship, we picture the music and the singing in church services. And music is definitely something I want to address today. I'm a musician myself, so that's very dear to my heart. Before I was a priest, my main ministry was leading a congregation's praise band when I was in my 20s. And in my postulancy, diaconate, and curacy, I sat in with the musicians at least every month or so. So that's an important thing for us. I had planned originally to be singing with the choir tomorrow, but I'll only be doing that a little bit. So we love doing the music things. But it is important to realize that everything we do on Sunday morning is indeed worship. That entire gathering is worship. Our liturgy is worship. Our giving is worship. If you're not giving, you're missing out on some worship. For both the preacher and the hearer, the sermon is an act of worship. Confession and absolution are worship. Hearing the word of God is worship. And yes, of course, our singing and other music is worship. Whatever we do to honor God, to show him reverence and devotion, is worship. So worship is about honoring God, not about expressing ourselves. That's also very important. So that means that church planting is fundamentally about worship. Because as a church planter, you're spreading the worship of God among places and people where it was probably not happening before. You're transmitting and proclaiming the worship of God for the salvation of souls and the strengthening of God's people. So what I adjure you today is to be intentional, prayerful, and excellent in how you approach worship as a church planter. Now, those of y'all who have done church planting may say, you know, Archdeacon, how can we be intentional and excellent without money and people? Because in church plants, you often don't have either of those things. A church plant and church planters are usually very limited when it comes to resources. You don't have a big budget. You don't have an endless supply of volunteers. When we listen to the podcast that says you need 200 people and X number of dollars, we as Anglicans are like, that's ridiculous. Our cathedrals don't have 200 people and X number of dollars, much less our church plants. But the good news is that none of those things are actually essential to intentional and excellent worship. They're nice to have, but you can be intentional and excellent without them. And for us Anglicans, we have more tools in our tradition than many other folks do to help us with that. So let's talk about some of those tools. This is the obvious starting place, but we have the prayer book. We have the Book of Common Prayer. Regardless of whether you're using the old 1662 or the modern provincial edition from 2019 or anything in between, you can theoretically do church anywhere as long as you've got prayer books and Bibles. That's all you need. Add to that a few basic vestments, a communion kit, a hymnal, and there's nothing preventing from full word and sacrament ministry so long as you've got that biblical 2 or 3 gathered together. We want worship to be beautiful, but beautiful doesn't have to be complex. It's not the same thing. Simplicity has its own beauty and elegance. So as a church planter, capitalize on simple elegance. Embrace the gift of elegant simplicity as a church planter. Our services at All Saints are not simple. I've made them a little bit simpler since I became the rector, but sometimes I'm like, gosh, I wish I could have that really simple setup. There's a freedom to that. There's a beauty to that. Don't try and recreate your favorite cathedral or other established church. Your context is different. Your calling is different, and your opportunities are different. So excellence and elegance in a simple context mean that you absolutely must read the service well. This is where we get to the practical stuff, right? So know your prayer book, know those rubrics, I might have mentioned know those rubrics. And be comfortable speaking in front of people. One of the ways to become more comfortable is to record and listen to yourself so that you can improve your public reading and speaking. I remember we had a chaplain that was with us for about 3 months when I was first the rector there. And as he was leaving his last Sunday, he said, "You know, I've loved watching you get better at speaking. There's a lot less ums than there used to be." I'm like, I think that's a compliment, but it's true. It's part of one of those things that grows, right? By all means, feel free to sing or chant the liturgy if you can, but reading the liturgy well is by far the most important thing. I do certainly recommend using actual prayer books rather than printed booklets if it's at all possible. The upfront cost can be more, of course, but the prayer book provides a complete rule of life and it minimizes liturgical tinkering. As your liturgy officer, trust me, none of us, and I'm pointing back at myself here as well, are as good of liturgists as we think we are. We're just not that good. It is a good discipline for us to submit to the external criteria from the prayer book. Have something outside of ourselves that we submit to. And as for the cost, you will often find, if you're willing to do a church plant with physical books, you're going to find other parishes or organizations that are willing to help you get a few copies of that prayer book if you're a new plant. They love to do that. The prayer book societies would have like a starter kit back in the day for everybody. As you're doing the liturgy, use an easy to follow or even vanilla approach to the liturgy. And what I mean by that is avoid making use of all the options. Especially with our more modern prayer books, there's a lot of options, and a lot of those options are in an appendix. And that means the people you're ministering to are looking around. Don't do that. Just use the vanilla option. Use something simple, easy to follow, and don't mix it up. Don't get addicted to variety. Rather, be consistent from week to week, from meeting to meeting. And the fear we all have with that is, oh my gosh, what if my people get bored? They're not going to get bored. You know who's going to get bored? This guy. And that doesn't matter. It's about that, right? It's about God. It's not usually the case that people get bored. Rather, they are usually becoming more familiar with the liturgy, and that familiarity is comfort. It makes church a place of comfort from the cares of the world. Now, counterintuitively, some of you may find that the older prayer books are more user-friendly for a church plant because they don't have as many options. That's something to pray about, think about. I know that's what Sam is doing up in Fredericksburg. And even though they have more archaic English, for most Americans, it doesn't matter whether the English is archaic or modern. It's unfamiliar. They don't get it. They're unchurched, right? So the liturgy is always weird. It doesn't matter if it has these and thous or nots. So yeah, it's just consult your context, but you may consider using something more straightforward. But that said, the modern liturgy is the 2019. It can be done straightforwardly, but you're going to have to think about that up front. You're going to have to plan it a little bit better. And that's okay. That's good practice too. Consult, even if you're not using it, consult the 1662. That's our provincial and our GAFCON gold standard for liturgy. Use that as the guide for interpreting the more modern rubrics. Because the modern rubrics love the word may, and that's where you get into trouble, is when you love to play with the may. Also remember that there is a primary rule of liturgy: the building always wins. So the physical space is going to determine what you can do. And as the computer guys say, that's a feature, not a bug. Use it. It's great. Another aspect of liturgy to consider is that you do not have to do communion as your default Sunday service. Between the Reformation and the late 20th century, for most Anglican contexts, morning prayer was the principal Sunday service. That doesn't mean that was the best thing back in the day, but it is part of our history. And the reason why I bring that up is because that means you don't have to be a priest to church plant. You know, if you're not a priest, again, I'm looking at you, Sam, you're not doing communion. You can't consecrate the Eucharist, and that's a feature, again, not a bug. But anybody can lead morning prayer, and we have that as a big part of our history. Alternatively, even if you are a priest, if you are in a context where you're going to get a whole lot of unbelievers, that's your primary folks that you're working with, you might consider less frequent communion because that unbeliever can't take communion. I'm going to invite you in and not let you participate. That doesn't work, right? So do something that the unbeliever, if that's your context, don't be afraid to use morning prayer on Sundays. Okay, let's talk about music. Just as I do recommend using a physical prayer book over printouts or overheads, I usually do recommend an actual physical hymnal over CCLI license. Now, I know a lot of people totally disagree with this, but here's why I do recommend that. A hymnal simplifies your musical selection process. So again, in a church plant context, that simplicity is your friend. Chances are, as a new plant, you're going to struggle to get a band or a choir together, but you can still have congregational singing. And congregational singing is the main point of music in church. It's not about having the cool praise band. Bishop Scott said he considers himself a Gen X, though he's a millennial. I'm in the same boat on that. We were told when we were growing up that it's the band that's going to draw people. They can get a better concert anywhere. You know, that's not your job as a church planter. So congregational singing, that's the main point. And I have done many, many small midweek services completely a cappella, leading adults and children with just a prayer book and a hymnal. As far as which hymnal to get, I do have some recommendations on your printout there. I have 3 kind of top recommendations, and I'm not recommending you need to get all of these. It might be helpful to have different things in your library, but really choose something that's going to work for you. That's really my recommendation. The main hymnal I do recommend for a church plant, remember, this is a church plant context, is that Hymnal of the Heart published by Nashotah House. And the reason why I recommend it is that it's very simple. It's got 100 songs. It's $6 a copy. It fits in your pocket. I've got some of my recommendations on the table over there that y'all can check out during lunch if you want to flip through some of those. And that simplicity of 100 hymns is what makes it good for church plants. They're all public domain texts. The melodies are the core of, as American Anglicans, we would consider hymnody. And because it is published by Nashotah, you have those liturgical guides in there too. So that's my first recommendation. And they've allowed it to be distributed for free as a PDF. My buddy Kurt Hine, the rector up in Georgetown, he on his website, he has that PDF. He said, oh, I can do that. I'm going to do it. So I have his link on your handout there, so you can check it out. My second hymnal I would recommend is published under 2 names, either Magnify the Lord or the Book of Common Praise. Both titles, it's the same thing. and that's the REC's current hymnal. It's published by our provincial publisher, and it is a bit more pricey, but it's very comprehensive, has a lot of indices that can help you with liturgical planning. It is designed for those traditional prayer books, those older prayer books, the American 28, the 1662. Alternatively, for those using the 2019, you might consider one that goes under the title Sing Unto the Lord. That's by Anglican Music Publishing. It's designed for our provincial prayer book, but it has not been endorsed by the ACNA. Nevertheless, it's very comprehensive. You could think of the Magnify the Lord, Book of Common Praise as a successor to the 1940 hymnal, those of y'all that have been in the Episcopal world. And the other one is kind of a successor to the 1982 hymnal from the Episcopal world. My third recommendation is something a little bit in between these two kind of very Anglican and then the very simple, and that's the Christian Life hymnal by Hendrickson. They're about $10 a copy. They're not as simple as the Nashotah one. They're not as complex as the REC or Sing Unto the Lord. And it's not even specifically Anglican, but it's a really good cross-denominational best of for American hymnody. And the Pew edition's about $10 a volume, so that's really affordable. The accompanying edition is about $100, again, very affordable. And they have a really neat feature that the other ones don't, which is they have a scripture index that puts every allusion to scripture in the hymns. How they researched that, I don't know, but just experimenting with what I would do for this coming Sunday, I was like, wow, there's some really great choices just from the scriptures there. So I like that one a lot. And unlike most of the accompanist editions, they have guitar chords as well as the keyboard score on everything. So the other ones have some guitar, but this has guitar for everything because I know we have a lot of guitarists. All right, I want to talk about the singing of the Psalms. I do firmly believe we need more psalm singing in churches. Venerable Peter Johnston he walked out, but their congregation is really good about this. So talk to Peter about ways to incorporate the singing of the Psalms. The Psalter is the Bible's own hymnal. You will find the Sing Unto the Lord and the REC hymnal have settings for psalm chanting. And that's typically that 4-part Anglican chant, both in that kind of old cathedral model that's hundreds of years old, or the more modern simplified form. I prefer plain song myself. That's just what I know better. I use the St. Dunstan's plain song Psalter. That is designed for older prayer book translations. Our provincial publisher has a Psalter for the 2019 that is pointed for chanting as well. And the provincial publisher also put in to their breviary, which is not cheap, but the breviary does have in it the hymnal of the heart and the pointed psalter, as well as chanting for all the other services, for daily services, not for the communion. We also have something called metrical psalters. That's where the psalms are paraphrased to fit hymn tunes. And as English speakers, this is a big part of our history that we've forgotten about. Before we had hymnals, which are really a 19th century thing, as English speakers, we almost always used metrical psalters for congregational singing. You can find some of those older ones online, but our Presbyterian friends, that's been a big thing for them. I've got a couple of those on the table too. My favorite is one called the Book of Psalms for Worship by Crown and Covenant right now. And that one has an app, so you can, a book or an app. Finally, one of the parishes in the ACNA, with a big music ministry, they put out a website called AnglicanMusicResources.org. They help you with hymn suggestions. They have things for coaching choirs, psalm settings and all the different styles, articles on the philosophy of church music, and a whole lot of that. When it comes to actually providing music for the church planting context, the thing here is use what you have. If you've got a guitarist or a keyboard player, it's pretty obvious what to do. But maybe you've only got someone that plays a solo instrument like a violin or a flute. Well, he or she can still lead by playing those melodies so that everybody can sing along, right? Or if you've got a few of those people, have them sing the different parts in the hymnal. You've got a little chamber orchestra going for you. You can do a lot of really good things like that. And if all else fails, you can do like the church did for centuries and sing a cappella. If you're a church planter, I do recommend learning to sing. Take a class here or there, get some coaching. You don't have to sing well, but you should sing. And singing, even if it's just a cappella, is always better than canned music when it comes to church services. That's one of the things you can do. And if you can sing, one of those front porch ministries can be having like classes and stuff. So reaching out to the community, because when it comes to like actual community singing, only the church is doing it now. But people want to do it, right? So that's something we can do. I'm almost all done here. One other thing, I want to address some other minor details about the liturgy. Vestments, communion vessels, bells, all that sort of thing. Again, keep it simple as a church plant. In the Anglican tradition, you don't need anything beyond choir dress. You don't have to have a wardrobe full of all the colors and all the different kinds of stuff. I'm probably the highest, spikiest church in our diocese, and I'm saying this, right? When I travel, I only bring my choir dress. It's a lot simpler, and being fussy is not necessary. What that is for a layman, that's just your cassock and surplice. If you're a graduate, throw in the hood. If you're a cleric, throw on the tippet. If you are doing communion, the stole and the liturgical color is fine, but you don't have to. Choir dress is all you need, and there's nothing that says simple elegance like Anglican choir dress. For communion vessels, get a simple kit. Don't worry about getting too fancy. Don't worry about incense and bells and stuff when you're a planter. Wait till you get bigger for that sort of thing. Don't worry about those details at this point. Keep it simple. You don't even have to worry about the liturgical colors at first, because they're not necessary for worship as an Anglican. So yeah, wait for those things until you have some physical space, are a bit more self-sustaining. In a pinch, any table can be at the altar, so long as you've got some proper linens. That's really all you need. Don't be overly fussy. Keep it simple. Keep it elegant. Elegance and simplicity are key to the excellence in church worship, especially as a planter. Traditional doesn't have to be fussy or complex. Know your context, know your people, adopt accordingly, and again, the building always wins. Thank you.